Welcome to Networking with Nathaniel, a podcast. Oh, my camera's not quite open here, where I get to sit down with high-level entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate investors that are making waves in their industries, whether you're an entrepreneur yourself, a real estate investor, or just somebody who's looking to grow. You have come to the right place. We have an amazing guest today. My name is Nathaniel Hovsepian. I am the host of Networking with Nathaniel. Go figure. I am a real estate investor, a health and wellness coach for busy dads. More importantly, I am a husband and a father. I'm a family first individual. I have done many, many deals in real estate. I have helped other people do the same, currently coaching busy dads to take control of their health and wellness. But this show is not about me. It's about the amazing guests that we get to talk to on the show. We share their struggles, they share their successes, they share what's working, what they're needing right now in order to grow themselves. Before we get into today's episode, please, if you are not already subscribed to the channel, like this video. If you are here for your first time, please hang out. We've got amazing insights and things from entrepreneurs who, like I said, are making waves in their industries. Today is no different. I think for the first time on Networking with Nathaniel, we have a note investor. So we're going to talk about notes, what he's doing, what he's not doing, what he sees, what is working, what his experience is. Welcome to the stage, Scott Carson. Appreciate your. Oh, I caught you texting. Yeah.
No, I'm just going. You didn't catch me texting. I'm just jumping on here to share it, the live stream as well.
Oh yeah, I need to share it. Go figure. We're live. I appreciate you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Good morning, buddy. Good morning.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
Honored to be here. Hope everybody's out there rocking and rolling along. We are. What is it? Today's the Wednesday after Memorial Day, so everybody's recovered from celebrations, graduations, college or high school, and back to
Oh
the
yeah.
grind. Right.
Yeah, there's all that. There's a lot of that going on right now. All the different graduations. My contractor, as a matter of fact, we were just talking about this property that we've just went under contract on. He's got an elementary, a junior high, a high school, and I think he said a college graduation as well. All this week. He's like, I'm taking the week off. I'm like, you should take the week off. That's what I've been trying to get you to do for a long time. But this is not
Well, that's
about
the
my
thing.
contractor. This is about Scott. Yeah.
But you know what? I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs fail to do that, and that's one of the biggest things I think that we've been really good at. I've told Steph, my better half, like if we're, we as entrepreneurs will fill the time. If something's not on the
Mhm.
calendar, we're going to fill it with a conference, a podcast, a job, or something like that. And I think if we really want to put our families first and the loved ones first, we've got to schedule that time, whether it's time blocking your calendar or booking vacations. I mean, you and I both know a ton of people who get so burnt out because they don't take the time to reflect. They don't get the time to spend with their family because they're going from one deal to another deal. And entrepreneurs don't work 40 hours a week. We're
Right.
overachievers for a reason, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I quit my 40-hour job so I could go work 80. Yeah.
Yeah. And they
I
never
feel
see
like I
my
said that on
family.
yours. Yeah, I
You
feel I
did
feel
say
like I said that on your
that.
podcast. That's funny. It's I'm glad you mentioned that about the time blocking your priorities, because a lot of people that see my calendar that aren't familiar with time blocking look at that as very restrictive. But for me, and I think probably for you, it's freeing for me. I know that the things that I want to happen are going to happen because I'm putting it on my calendar.
Yeah, that's totally one of my mentors and coaches in life told me early on, like you have to respect your schedule for others to respect yours. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if you don't respect your schedule, people will lollygag. They'll be time vampires. They'll suck you dry, and you won't
Mm,
get stuff done. And
yeah.
so early on, I started. When I first went out as an entrepreneur, I failed back when I was. This is over before I got into real estate. I failed because the time freedom a lot of times, really kind of strangled me. So the second time around, when I became a full time real estate entrepreneur, I was like, we're going to block this time. We're going to make sure things get done. Recently we've blocked out Fridays for the most part. I'll work sometimes on Fridays for events or stuff like that for it's a special thing, but usually my week is a Monday through Thursday kind of thing. And
Yeah.
my morning is blocked out for me. I don't usually check emails or do anything before 11 o'clock my time because I want to get my workout in. I want to walk around. I want to really kind of focus on what do I have to accomplish. And then it's a 11 to 12 to, to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then it's after that, it's my time.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I like this is something to strive for, that when we see other people that are having success and are successful doing these things, like, well, why can't we do those things? We think, well, I have to work 100 hours a week in order to get to where I want to go, but we're sacrificing our present right now. Yeah, we want to build for our future, but we don't want to give up the now, because I don't know if we want to share. The now could go. You could be gone tomorrow.
Yeah, it could definitely be gone tomorrow or
Yeah,
today,
yeah,
and we've experienced that somewhat recently. I've got a buddy who lives across the street, known for about 12 to 15 years. I remember I better have known him a little bit longer than I have, but guy you see every weekend, every day. We're swapping food, barbecue. It's one of those great neighbors that you love. He watches you, you watch them, and everything like that. And
yeah.
unfortunately, he's been dealing with issues in the last 6 months. And unfortunately, he slipped and fell and cracked his skull on Wednesday morning and went to the hospital and had a brain bleed. And he's gone. He's gone by Friday.
Yeah.
And he didn't expect that. I mean, he'd been struggling with kidney and liver issues the last 90 days. And I was on him like, hey, man, you got to get your stuff together, just for the heck. I'm not wishing this to be gone, but we got to get your stuff together. And then talk not only about him financially, but also like spiritually. How's your faith, and how's your mind, what you're dealing with? You need a liver transplant. How's that dealing with you? And unfortunately, he just oh, I'll get to it, or I'm going to talk to my company attorney and we'll work on that. And then like that, gone, and nothing prepared.
Yeah.
And that's just not. His family's kind of left in the lurch trying to figure things out, and it's an unfortunate thing. So yeah, Greg, let's talk. Let's just start off positive this morning, right?
Yes, super down in the dumps. Yeah. What, you know what? We could flip it around and say, hopefully that this can be an eye opener for somebody out there that is listening currently or in the future, that you need to set these things up. I've been fortunate that I had a friend like yourself to this person that has been saying, come on, you've got 3 kids. You've got these things that you're building. Make sure that they're passed on correctly to them. And it was almost like she was trying to sell me something, but she wasn't trying to sell me something. She was just trying to make sure that I'm taken care of. She's following up with me. Hey, it's been a couple weeks. What have you done? I'm like, I finally was able to say, Deb, if you're out there listening, I've already told her, but like we've got the things in place, there to make sure that we're protected. And
that's the thing. It's not just it's protection more so for our family. I mean, that's the biggest thing. So like being a note guy, I deal with people that are really difficult financial situations. I'm not a guy that goes out and buys like owner finance notes or create notes, although we'll buy stuff. For the last almost 20 years as a real estate investor, I focus on distressed real estate, people who are struggling to make their mortgage payments. And since 2010, 2008, when I bought my first, I focus almost like 99% on non-performing notes, where we're buying debt where people haven't paid in 6 months to 6 years, some cases, whether it's through, sickness, job loss, death of a family member, and when we have those conversations with borrowers, like what happened, or my so-and-so passed away and now we don't know where everything's at, stuff like that. It's well, let's try to work something out to make it a win-win scenario here for you. So many people just aren't prepared for that when God comes a knocking, you know what I mean? So you got to take the time to prepare things.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to segue this, because this is where we want the conversation. I mean, we're going to have our conversations.
Sure, right.
So you're focused on buying non-performing notes. You mentioned, foreclosures, people that aren't paying. What's this process for you for trying to create a win-win? What does it look like for somebody who's buying a non-performing note?
Great question. I mean, we get lists from banks and hedge funds. We're not going out and chasing the individual borrower. So it's a little bit different conversation. A lot of the emotion is taken out of the fact versus, trying to buy a distressed property where somebody's like, losing their job or losing their house. So banks send us their list of non-performing borrowers, which we kind of call the naughties. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And if it's occupied and they've tried to make a payment, I mean, that's a great thing. We really get to see a lot of stuff beneath the kimono, I guess you could say. What the value of the property is, their payment history, hardship letters that they've sent to the bank, communication of the bank or the servicing company. And so we are able to step in and buy this debt at a discount with some idea of, hey, if we buy this note, we're going to either try to offer the borrower a payment plan. Let's try to get them back on track first and foremost. That's really what we like to do. We don't like to rehab properties. We like to rehab borrowers. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like property management. I don't want to own real estate for the most part. I mean, we do take some stuff back. We end up with some of it, but most of the part, we want to be like the banks because we buy that debt at a discount. If we can get them back on track, start paying on time, it's usually a double-digit return for us if we can just get them start paying on time. And then after a period of, 12 to 18 months of on-time payments, I can turn around and sell that note back to Wall Street or to other investors as a performing note at 80, 90 cents of what is owed. And not only do we do good for us with good returns. I mean, obviously, I don't run a charity. I'm here to make money.
Yeah.
We make good returns that way. We make great returns when we sell the debt or we hold it for cash flow. But we're also able to keep that borrower in their house. All right. We keep that dream of homeownership alive. And sometimes bad things happen to good people. And about 70% of the time, we're actually able to keep people in their houses. And that's what we look for. It is Gracie. Now, the other 25, 30% of the time, we're going to foreclose or give money to that borrower just to walk because they just can't afford it. And we have to have that kind of come to Jesus, mean like, listen, you're not in a spot to afford this. Let's get you out of this property. We don't want to foreclose, but we will, and every state's a little bit different on the foreclosure time frame. Sometimes it's fast, like it here in Texas and South Carolina, it takes about a year where you're at. So it just varies. But that's the biggest thing is trying to, I really empathize with borrowers because I was once like that years ago back in 2000 and 2001, 2002. I was a distressed borrower trying to stay alive after getting laid off. So I understand how people feel with that, but that's what we do. We bought over $1 billion in debt over the years and have been really lucky to be able to help a lot of folks. Not every deal's been a home run. A lot of them sequels a double. Some we've strike down on, but for the most part, when you look at, we've closed on thousands of mortgages across the country. It's a great business to be in, to be the bank, as I guess to say, because nobody beats the bank for the most part.
Right. Yeah, it's a little like the casinos. Like I just have to have enough volume to where some of those losses will be way offset by.
Well, I don't like to compare to casinos because the house always wins the casinos. But like we know, like if I'm buying a note, if I'm buying a note at 50 cents of the value of the property, I've got a lot of flexibility to either keep the person in the house if it's going to be a good yield, or modify it, reduce their terms if it makes sense for me. If that doesn't work, then we can go the route of doing a reduced settlement if they've got some cash or want to cash out. If they don't want to stay in the house, we can do a deed in lieu, cash or keys, or help them sell it. If they owe more than the property's worth, since we bought it at a discount, we can allow them to do like a short sale, and if and if they don't play ball, then we do have the right to go the legal route to foreclose, and on some states where it takes longer to foreclose, or you have something like that, COVID happens that stops everybody from paying for a while. Those things can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but for the most part, as long as you're doing your due diligence right, and you don't have a borrower who's just using every crazy thing out there, like you avoid New York, New Jersey, which are longer foreclosure states. You avoid trying to buy in Chicago because it's a corrupt place to have to foreclose. Once you get through those areas, you're pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, interesting. We do have a question in the chat. I have a handful of my own. When you're reaching out to the borrowers, they've already had communications with the bank. Does that make it a little bit easier, them more open to working with you?
Yeah, so the stuff that we buy, they may be with banks, they may be with other lending companies, or they're dealing with a servicing company. And we all know servicing companies like to automate things.
Yeah.
So, and if you've ever been behind your mortgage, you're getting certified letters in the mail every week, and your phone's ringing off the hook from it's a servicing company. You may not have a lot of conversations with the bank because you're trying to avoid it. So coming in from a new number, a third party, a different servicing company, different letters, that's one thing we said, listen, we know you're behind. Let's not beat around the bush. We know you're behind. Let's talk. We've got a couple different options for you. Let's work with you. What do you want to stay? Do you want to stay or do you want to go? If you want to stay, you got to pay. No pay, no stay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Let's work something out that makes sense. And the fact that we're now into the deal for 50 cents on the dollar, that gives us a whole lot more flexibility when working with that homeowner and how we can structure something. You know what I mean? Now, we're always going to want the borrower to bring some skin in the game. Hey, you're a year behind. Can you bring 4 months to the table? Or can you bring $1,000 to the table and pay $100 or $200 extra per month to get called back on that? if you're not gonna, if you're not gonna bring something extra to the table, you're pretty likely to end up uh, getting foreclosed on again. So, let's do this in an empathetic way. Do a deed in lieu, help you, give you some money to walk away from the deal if we need to.
Okay. Yeah. So this is something that we talk about in Fit Fatherhood, which is when somebody comes in, we're trying to meet them where they're at and find out what their situation is. You've done a lot of this work, it sounds like, before you're making a decision on purchasing the note.
Oh
Are you?
yeah. I mean that's the thing. We'll see their payment history. We'll see what the value of the property is. What their
Yeah.
monthly P&I payment is. How much in taxes are owed. And so if it's occupied or vacant, if it's occupied, you got a lot more strategy. If it's vacant, then they've moved on. You're not likely to get them back to the property. So then you're talking more like a deed in lieu or cash for keys. But they're living in the property. It's pretty easy to know what the mortgage payment is, and then doing a quick rent check. We know rent's all higher, more expensive than the mortgage payment. So that's part of the negotiation. Like, listen, we know that you're living in this area. I know you've probably checked and know it's going to cost you more to move out, moving costs and rent and uprooting your kids and all that stuff. Look, if you want to stay, let's work out a plan that makes sense. But if you're not willing to meet me halfway, then there's no reason to have conversations. And we've had borrowers like that who drug things on for a year or two. We had one note we bought in Florida where the borrower hadn't paid in 4 years and they drug it out 2.5 years, And we kind of knew going into that, well, we know we're going to foreclose because we can see all the legal stuff and all the servicing notes that this guy was just playing games. I mean, we gave him the opportunity, but if you're going to play games with me, you're just going to talk to my attorneys or my servicing company. I don't have to talk to you unless I really want to.
Mm. Are you having a conversation with them before you're making the decision to buy the note, or is this? Yeah,
no, you can't do that, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's not like you being able to go out and talk to somebody about buying their house or taking over payments, in a sub-2 deal. With mortgage debt and in that nature, you can't talk to the borrower ahead of time. Oh, hey, would you be able to finance, or would you be able to refinance or do a modification before you buy that note? That's a violation of fair debt collection practices, unfortunately. But we get the thing we're able to determine, Nathaniel, is that since we're seeing the servicing notes, we can see if the borrower's called in and what those conversations have been, or how many times the lender called the borrower out and then maybe they told them to go F off. Well, we know that's going to be a disgruntled borrower. You know what I mean? And in today's world of social media, I mean, people will tell you all the time. And we've had borrowers that said, "Listen, should I pay my mortgage this month or go to Disney World? We're going to Disney World." I'm like, "Yeah, you're not worthy of a loan mod." Or, we bought a note in Missouri, and it was by searching, skip tracing, we knew the borrower was not an attorney, was a professor, but he broke his leg, so he was out of work for like 6 months. I'm like, okay, we'll get this. This guy's something that would be willing to keep back on track as soon as he gets back in to be able to pay. So we kind of call that social sleuthing to figure out what's going on. We had one lady who bragged online that she bought this brand new white Cadillac and had this big party into the shopping spree and bought all these new clothes. I'm like, well, when we called her, we're like, listen, we see online you just bought a brand new car and all these new clothes. You paid for it with your mortgage payments. So you can either A, come to the table with a chunk of what you're behind in, or B, we're just going to foreclose. Homie, don't play that.
Yeah. That dates us a little bit, I think. I like to think that a lot of my audience is around our age or so. So I think some people will reference that, but you should look that up if you
Homie the Clown, Damon Wayans,
and
some of his finest roles at In Living Color.
Yeah, that was a good. Geez, yeah, that takes me back a little bit.
Him
Okay,
and
we don't need to go down that road. That's where I was going. Let me tell you something. So you mentioned the fair. I forget exactly what you called the fair debt servicing.
Fair debt collection practices. Yeah,
collection practices.
Yeah.
Okay, does that come into play because you've gotten this information from the bank now, or because of what your title, your company is?
No, I mean, if you're a debt buyer, usually what happens is that either you or your servicing company has to be licensed in that state to collect debt. Okay. And if you don't own the note, you can't talk to the borrower about the note. Right now, commercial's different. Commercial, you could actually, as long as you get permission from the bank, you can go talk to the borrower in a lot of cases about stuff like that. But you're not going to be contacting the borrower. Hey, can you modify? Can you start making payments ahead of time? But you can see, especially I'll give you an example. Like we've bought notes where people have sent in like hardship letters like 4 or 5 times. They send in, hey, we're trying to do a loan mod, and the previous lender wouldn't do a loan mod for them. Well, if somebody's asking for a loan mod and they're telling you what they can afford, that's a pretty slam dunk deal. It's like, well, I'll buy that note because I'm buying it at a bigger discount because I'm not the guy that, or that we're not the company that wrote it, originated. So with the bank, writing off a loan or taking a big haircut, that gives me the flexibility to be much more flexible with that borrower.
Yeah. These lists that you're getting from the bank.
Yep.
Do you have to be a debt service collector like you are to be able to go get this list, or could somebody
no, anybody could get a list. I mean, you just got to pass the smell test. You can't call a bank, and the biggest mistakes people make is, they call the bank, they call customer service. Hey, I want to buy notes. I'm looking for notes and REOs, notes and foreclosures. Well, first of all, that's shooting yourself in the foot, because if banks hear that, or servicing company hears that, they're just going to send you to the REO department, which is a voicemail box, and it's going to say call the listing agent. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But calling to get notes, the customer service isn't going to know about that. So you have to basically contact specific departments in the bank, like the special assets manager, the secondary marketing department. We leverage LinkedIn a lot, and different conferences to find the right people inside the bank to talk to get these lists. And then they're going to ask you some questions, to make sure you pass the smell test. LinkedIn is important for us. But they'll send you a list. And most of the time you can cherry pick these lists. You're not going to get a list from Bank of America, Chase, Citi, or Wells Fargo. They want you to buy 50 to 100 million, but there's still thousands and thousands of other lenders out there that are looking to sell their non-performing debt off. There's also smaller funds, hedge funds that have bought, like a big pool of, 20 million that can sell $1 million off that you can cherry pick from. So like, I'll give you an example. We just got 52 notes approved on offers right before the holiday, Memorial Day holiday. All right. Okay. It was listed as originally 130 notes. I made offer in 79 of them, and I got 52 accepted. And it's 30, get this, is already 30 performing notes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I can 30 performing notes, and then the 22 non-performing notes. The value of the real estate is somewhere around 5 to 6 million. And my bid of $1 million was accepted. Now the cash flow off the performing notes already gives it an 18.8% cash and cash return based on what the borrowers have paid the last 12 months. Right. And the reason they're selling this portfolio off is it's the second half. So like we're picking it up, 20 cents on the dollar what's owed, but the owners want to get rid of it. They need to get the cash in, sell it off. They bought it at a big discount years ago. They've worked through it, got the borrowers back on track. They've held it for 5 years. They bought it, and so they're looking to recoup, their investment. Plus they've gotten cash flow for years. So they're selling to me at a great discount and a great return. Cause I'll basically go out and have investors that'll fund the stuff at 9-10%, and we'll make the other half, and give them a quarterly payout of, 10 to 12% to them. And it'll be a win-win across the board. And the borrowers that are paying on time, they'll just keep paying on time. The people that aren't paying on time and those 20 non-performers, we'll either try to work it out or we'll go the route to foreclose and take the asset back. So,
yeah, I have this one question that I had to write it down because as you're talking, I keep having more pop up. It sounds like you have this, let's just say, call it 18% return from these notes that you're doing, and you're going to go deliver at, I'm just, again, 12% to your investors that you're bringing in, and you're just arbitraging, you're getting the difference for yourself. Yeah. This is amazing.
Well, okay. So they'll fund the 30, but basically the 20 non-performers, I'll get basically for free.
Wow.
You know what I mean? They'll fund at $1 million. It'll still be a great return on those 30 to them at 18%. That will arbitrage and get 12, but the other 20 that are non-performing, some of those will get reperforming, others will foreclose and take the asset back. Others will foreclose and sell it at the auction. So it's a slam dunk deal on stuff like that. And we're just buying 52 notes at a time. We buy a lot of one-offs. My biggest trade was 378 notes at one time. That was that took a year to go through. You know what I mean? And figuring that stuff out. But that's the thing is, what we're very proud of the fact that people use their IRAs to fund these deals a lot of times too, or to buy an individual note. Like we've got one lady who is going to buy 5 of these. It's going to be about a 15% yield to her. She's going to fund. It's going to be $100,000 out of her solo 401k, and she's tickled pink You know, they'll be there with there's a third party servicing company, so she doesn't need a license in the States because that's covered by that third party. And so she's pretty happy to be making a nice return in her IRA that she wouldn't get otherwise, you know, passively.
The question that I wrote down here is, with all your different strategies that you have, which you've gone through, you know, so far, meeting the seller where they're at, working with them to try to get them to be back on track, how do you lose here? Like, what?
So you lose if you have to buy in bulk a lot of times, you'll have some shit in there that's just ugly assets. You know what I mean? Like bottom of the barrel, like, you know, that just don't make sense. What happens too is that you'll have people that buy stuff and they don't track the taxes. So taxes will wipe you out. So originally in this pool, it was about 200 plus notes. Well, we were looking at it and there was like 20, 30 of them that were already gone to the tax foreclosure, and the lender didn't even know it. You know what I mean? They didn't follow along on those things. So that happens. You have stuff where you buy because technically we're buying this collateral file. This is what we're buying, not the actual property. This secures it. So if there are assignments missing in this or other things that are missing in this, like from the original file, it's harder to foreclose. So sometimes you're running that, you know, we've had that happen before where a servicer lost our collateral file. We're like, you know, and so we're trying to work out something with the borrower, you know, or, you know, you buy stuff and that doesn't show up, you know what I mean? Or there's missing assignments that transfer ownership and stuff like that. So that's kind of what happens. Of course, things can delay, like if you run into, like we talked about COVID, where people weren't required to make their mortgage payment. You know, we had some states where people didn't pay for 18 months. You know what I mean? That's tough, you know, but most of the time about 85% people paid, but you still have those deals where people don't pay. Or you deal with like a state like Chicago. I joke about Chirac. So I bought a portfolio of some hard money loans up in Chicago a few years back. And we thought we were getting a great deal because it was at, they were 65% LTV, ARV. We were buying them at 50 cents on the dollar of that. Well, it takes forever to foreclose in Chicago. And then you got your tenants that are trashing the property. You've got people that you're evicting and they're breaking back into the property. If you aren't living in Chicago, like I'm an out-of-state investor, the court system would constantly give the borrowers more time, another 90 days, and another 90 days, and another 90 days. And then you'd finally get somebody out and they'd break back in, or you'd go secure a property and they go in and steal the copper, you know, after you foreclose. And so, you know, you try to avoid those rough areas like that. You know, we thought we'd do it. We came out, that was a big check to write on those assets to get the heck out of the Dodge, but you learn from that. So there's some, you know, never buy a note you don't want to end up owning is one of the best things to do. And then also know what's going on with your local politics. Because if I had lived in Chicago, I think the judge would have cited me because I'd been a voter. But since I'm an out-of-state investor, oh no, we got to help the voters out here.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I could see that, protect your people, but we do have another question for Yolanda, and I want you to answer this. What's the difference between a performing and a non-performing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a performing note is exactly like that. It's performing. The borrower's paying on time. You know, they continue to pay on time. It pay 360 months on time for a 30-year. A non-performing note is where a person stops paying. And what we look at is really where it goes to default, where they haven't made at least 3 to 4 months of non-payment. So they're behind by 90 to 120 days. And that's basically where it starts to default. And that's when we start to get involved in buying stuff, usually where they're 6+ months behind. The bank's more motivated to sell that note in a lot of cases. And then you have something called reperforming notes, is where we'll buy a non-performing note, work out, call Nathaniel, hey man, you haven't paid your mortgage in 6 months. Oh man, I was out of work or sick. Can I start paying again? Yeah. So they start paying on time for 6 months. And usually after they've started paying on time, it'll be reclassified as a reperforming note. So that's kind of the asset. And we're basically just going after first liens, not second liens or junior liens. I mean, even though that's a niche of folks out there that will go after that, we like to be in the first lien position. It's easy to raise capital, and you're in the driver's seat as well most of the time. I mean, we can get wiped out via taxes, act of God. If there's not insurance on the property, you got to make sure that there's insurance on it as well too.
Okay, interesting. So this is an aspect of the notes buying that I didn't think of, is that you're, in a sense, you're taking the asset, you're adding value to it by getting it back to a performing note, and then you're able to go, hey, look, here's the future value of it, or the value over time. I'll sell it to you for today's value.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
you're able to,
Yeah, so that's the thing. We buy the debt at a discount. The borrower still owes the full amount. So let me give you like an example of a deal we did recently. It wasn't the biggest. The house was worth about 100. They were, borrower owed 120. They've been behind for about a year. We paid $50K for that note. Their mortgage was written at 7%. So if they would have started paying on time again, it'd been a 14% cash return to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did start paying on time for years. And for about a year. After 12 months, we were able to reclassify it as a reperformer. And then we sold that debt back to a mortgage fund at $82,000. Okay. So we got a year of payments. We got 4 months of payments from the borrower on the front end, skin in the game. Like, hey, will you put some skin in the game? We're going to work with you. Yeah, kept them in their house. Yeah. Year payments. And then we also got, $33,000 more when we sold the note back to Wall Street. Borrower still owed 120. You know what I mean? And it whittled down some because we were working with them. They were paying a little bit extra each month, but they stayed in their house. You know what I mean? The house appreciated up to about 110, I think. So they weren't so far underwater anymore. But it was a win-win. Now, if it had gone to foreclosure, we all know foreclosures affect the local neighborhood dramatically, right? It would have dropped values down on that neighborhood and zip code, a little bit. And we try to avoid it. Plus, a foreclosure would have affected the borrower for 7 years, versus just late pays only affected them 24 months. So
yeah. Well, there's so much about that I love, and you found we all know landlord. I mean, maybe we don't all know, but I think for the most part, that's what when we're thinking real estate investing, you think, okay, go buy a house. You're either flipping it or you're going to be a landlord.
Yeah.
And there's just so many darn ways to do this. And you mentioned it towards the beginning of this conversation, is that like, yeah, I'm in here to make money, but I also want to do right by people. And you just mentioned another way you're trying to do right. You're not even just trying to do right by the person that you're doing the note for. You're trying to do right by the other people in the neighborhood and the city, that, hey, if I can keep this house from going into foreclosure, I can keep all your property values, going in the right direction, or in the direction that we want them to go.
Yeah. I mean, so, we try to do that. I mean, that's the thing is, and you have people that will not do anything, and they'll just hide their head in the sand and not answering. If you really like, why aren't you doing something? I can help you, and you see that too. And people have a ton of equity and they're facing foreclosure and they won't do something about it. Won't sell it. Won't do a deed in lieu or a subject to deal. That's one thing we get too. It's notes work really well with subject to guys, because we'll get these lists from banks, borrower's name, address, how far behind they are, interest rates, P&I payments. So if we're buying a list of notes, or we're looking at a list and the bank won't sell to us at a price that makes sense, we can target those individual borrowers potential subject to deals. Like, hey, because we know that the bank will do a mod. So a lot of times we'll do a direct mail campaign and say, hey, we know you're facing foreclosure. Let's help you save your house or save your credit, and potentially do a subject to deal with those borrowers where the numbers make sense.
There's a lot of ways that you're able to kind of go about once you have the information that you have. What, if anything, right now are you looking for, are you needing in your business to kind of push the needle to where you're trying to go?
Well, so we've seen an increase in deal flow, obviously, over the last 24 months. We see stuff 6 to 12 months ahead of traditional investors in a lot of cases. So it's always good for folks that are looking to put some lazy assets to work. You can buy a performing note that's great for your IRA if you like passive, you like to be a little bit more aggressive and get a higher return. You can buy non-performing and work that out and go that route. So we're always looking for more buyers that are looking to dive into this niche of the world, or people that are looking to put some lazy assets to work for funding, as funding partners and stuff like that. So that's always something to help us close more deals and get bigger discounts, because when we're buying bigger portfolios, that would probably be the number one, number two thing that we're looking for. Always folks that maybe are tired of landlording, maybe they're tired because they can't find fix and flips, they can't find REOs. They're tired. We've gotten a lot of people coming over from the short-term rental side, because that's been oversaturated. People in the multifamily space. I mean, I got a buddy who's in 20 syndications and 19 aren't paying. So they're looking to move into something that they can be more in control of. And still instead of buying, where their 50 grand's going into buying, a small part, 50 grand might buy one note or two notes for them, and that can be a good yield to them. And you have third party management in place, so you ain't gonna be the person calling and trying to collect. There's vendors that you pay monthly to do that for you. So that's the thing we're always doing. I mean, it's part of the reason I started teaching. I've been doing this for 15 plus years teaching and buying notes for almost 20 years. I've been over 20 years as a real estate investor. It's hard to believe now.
Wow.
That's why we started. We have our podcast, the Note Closer Show, which is the number one podcast for note investors. We've also got the number one YouTube channel, WeCloseNotes.tv, out there, and we're just always trying to educate folks because the market's always changing. Laws will change, things will change, and so that's the biggest thing is just keep educating people, and the right people will find you. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's a-okay. But
Yeah,
my biggest thing is just helping people understand this niche, because when we started doing this back in 2008, 9, and 10, note investing had been around. You'd had the savings and loan crisis and the RTC scandal, stuff like that, but it wasn't available to just your true Main Street investors. There's more Wall Street, but now it's really, we've taken Wall Street and brought it to Main Street investors out there that want to dive into it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. So we have another. Yolanda's just populated in the chat with questions here. How did you get introduced to this strategy?
Great question. So
Yeah.
back in 2004, I was a banker at JP Morgan Chase here in Austin. I was one of the top bankers in the state. And a buddy of mine approached me that we'd worked together previously as financial advisors for Citibank or Citi Financial and Smith Barney, that kind of neck of the woods. And he was starting a mortgage company with this real estate investor named Bob Leonetti and his partner, Jamie Kalin. He and she were traveling the country on the Ron LeGrand circuit, teaching creative financing, options, wholesaling, subject to deals. And they were teaching the creating paper, like how to create notes with owner financing. And so I said, yeah, I wanted to do that. That's what I want to do. So I left my banking job July 4th, 2004. And then for the next 4 years, I basically traveled nonstop across the country doing mortgages, but I sat in the back of the rooms and had a 4-year apprenticeship with Bob and Jamie, and he and she just taught me all the ins and outs of investing and about note investing. And back then you had pretty good mortgages. Well, we all know what happened in 2008, right, with the mortgage crisis. Yeah. And they were like, this is the best time to start contacting banks to buy debt, to buy that. And so that's what I had. I basically had a 4-year apprenticeship that taught me the note investing space. And then when everything hit the fan, I left the mortgage origination side and started going after the de-origination side, if that makes sense. So.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you had some training, and then they were like, hey, this is the best time in history to put your training into practice.
Yeah. And you start seeing smaller conferences, some people teaching this aspect of things. And we thought, honestly, most of us that were in the note investing space, it's kind of it's much smaller compared to than wholesaling or renter. I mean, maybe 40, 50,000 note investors truly out there, which is much smaller than the other bigger niches. And we all thought, oh, this will be like 3-4 years, but no, it's turned into something that's, like I said, it's 17 years later from when I bought my first note, and I'm like, we're seeing more stuff. So history's repeating itself again with defaults. And when you look at the default rates, how 1 in 10 or 1 in 9 homeowners that have a mortgage are behind on their mortgage by at least 30 days or later, there's a lot of people in distress. I think that there was an article that came out that student loan debt just popped, the bubble burst on that. So you had this huge wave of people that went 90 days late on their student loan debt, credit card debt, auto loan debts, all at all-time highs. Well, people are struggling to pay those bills. They can't pay them, they're not going to be able to pay their mortgage, and that's the next wave that we're going to see. Not going to be bad as 2010, but there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah, I haven't paid my car loan yet. I just bought a new. I just
bought it. You're just in that 30 to 45 day range. That's what I figured. But I got to tell you a story. I bought a truck. I bought a note in a truck from a credit union, and then repoed it because the guy wouldn't pay me. It was a Ford F-150 quad cab. I paid $3,500 for the $12,000 note. I drove that truck around the country for like 3.5 years. And when I traded it into my new truck, I got a $3,500 trade-in value on it.
Score.
Yeah. I was like, I gotta drive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's the ticket right there. You mentioned earlier that the people that are coming out to borrow from you, If somebody wants to borrow from you, or I mean, if somebody wants to lend, if somebody wants to get in touch with you and be a part of these deals, what's the best way to reach out?
Really easy. I'm Scott Carson. If you go to talk, if you can book a phone call, my calendar at talkwithscottcarson.com. We go to weclosenotes.com as my main website and connect with me there.
Okay.
That's the best way to go. And then we can have a conversation. I'm going to ask you some questions. You're more than welcome to ask me any question you want. There's no dumb questions, the way I look at it. But for some people, it's a fit. Other people, it's not a fit. You know what I mean? That's
Right.
okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want something more passive, then you probably want to go to the performing side. If you've got a little bit more time, we're not talking 60, 80 hours a week, but if you get a little bit more time, and you like a little high return, then you may want to go to the non-performing side, or you may just want to invest passively with me on some deals and be okay that way. You know what I mean? Get a quarterly payout. So
Yeah. So you're getting these investors are coming in, they're going to get, somewhere in that double digit, the double digit
yep,
returns. And then you mentioned your example earlier was, and I don't quote me on the exact numbers, but you bought it for 50, you sold it for 80, a
yep,
year later. You got the cash flow. So the investor's getting the cash flow in the interim. And then
yep.
what happens when the note sells?
We pay them back their investment.
Okay. So they just get the return on their money
Yep,
while their money is out, and then they get their principal back.
yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yep.
amazing. Okay. And then they can just go, well, hey, I don't want my money back. I want the returns. Go put
We'll
it back
roll it into
somewhere.
another deal if we sell
Yeah.
it, or,
Go put it
or
back
we
in the
keep it,
yields.
or depending on the deals that they're in or the deal that they're in, we may keep it for 3 years for cash flow. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a great thing. You never know. I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a choose your own adventure. You know what I mean? If that same borrower didn't want to play ball, then we would foreclose, right? So we'd foreclose. We're in at 50. It costs us like $5,000 to foreclose. We're at 55. The house is worth 100. We turn around and either sell at the auction for 95 at the foreclosure auction, trying to get somebody to buy it at 90, 95. So we would just get the cash then. If it doesn't sell at the auction, then we take it back. Now we can list it as an REO, and then turn around and sell it. And we're still able to pay our investor back a double-digit return on that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got so many ways to go about making sure that they're getting taken care of.
Yeah, there may not in normal life. There's no equity in the deal, right? They owe 120 because the house is only worth 100, but we're
Yeah.
making our equity by buying that debt at a discount. So that's the great thing I like about it, because we're at a less riskier position being in the first position, because we do have all this technically value above what's owed.
Right. So I have these questions that we talked about this before, and I just started this last week that I want to start working in. One that I think is pretty valuable for everybody out there, and you kind of already alluded to it, is that you don't really start your workday typically until around 11 o'clock. What
I logged on 15 minutes early for you today, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah. I don't know. That's not when you're starting your day, though, but you're
Right,
starting your
right, right.
day before that. What are the habits that you're doing on a daily basis that you could say have contributed to your success?
I can. Number one is just the morning routine of getting up 8, 9 o'clock, sometime in between there, feeding the fur babies, making sure they're fed before they eat our faces off in the morning. Like, hey, Dad, I'm hungry. You need to feed me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But then getting up, getting a cup of coffee, having my glass of water before that, and then going outside, getting some vitamin D in my
mm,
morning walk. Honestly, the being able to, and I don't listen to music usually just me walking in the morning, and I listen to the birds and the breeze and the sun, or that,
yeah.
and getting around and walking there. But it's about a mile lap around my community here. It's 2 miles, right? 2 miles, but I do all the little inlets. And so I started doing that about 4 or 5 years ago, right at COVID. And not only has that helped me, I feel health wise, and no longer have back spasms. I lost weight from doing that, especially in the 100-degree heat here we have in Austin. But it's not
Right.
only good for the endorphins of that and the fresh air, but it's also, I've met my neighbors. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so many of us live in communities, we don't even know the next door neighbor. You know what I
right.
mean? Communication. Everybody knows me. Hey, you're
Mm,
that guy that walks every morning. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
you're getting waves, and that's probably one of the most valuable things. And one thing that we like to do around the holidays, which is kind of funny, is my family's always been big about making something, candy or bread or something, given away. Well, I do cobblers, right? So
Okay.
last Christmas we made 20 cobblers for some of our neighbors. Well, this last, just recently, Like that number's gone up from people I know. So I'd like to make like 45 cobblers for
Oh, wow.
people. Fresh peach cobbler out of the
Big
oven right
pot.
around
Yeah.
Christmas. So
Yeah.
it was a 2 weekend ordeal, but it was a lot of fun. And now, it's just that we've built the community by just, when most people want to hide in their house, especially during COVID, a lot of people want
Right.
to hide. It's a great community here. Of course, people come and go, but that's I think we all need that. And it's a great thing that I love about what you're doing here, networking with Nathaniel. It's great for folks to come together on a regular basis, and you can't always do it in person, but the more you can do stuff live or virtually and stuff like that, the bigger your community is, the more people you have to go for questions, or when you have issues, you have people you can like and trust and
Yeah.
pick their brain and rely on in a lot of cases. So that morning routine has been one of the number one things, making sure that my time is booked. When we want to take a vacation, we book it. We pencil it out 6 to 12 months out and get it booked, and that way we can plan around that.
Mm.
And then in the last year and a half, I've also gone to like a 4-day work week where it's just Monday through Thursday. Friday is kind of, we'll still do some stuff on Friday, some maintenance and stuff like that. But for the most part, Friday, is something that we do for fun, whether it's traveling or spend a little time here, catching an afternoon movie or something like that. That's what it's come down to. Own your schedule, respect your
Yeah.
schedule, because nobody else is going to respect it unless you respect it first.
Is Man, that's a quote. Is that something that you would recommend for people that are just getting started in this? Is like, hey, if this is what you want to do it now.
So no matter what you're doing, that's a really great question. We've helped work with a lot of new investors, and a lot of new investors, you are bootstrapping. And the best thing I can tell you as a new investor is network. I mean, get out and
Mm.
network, find the different conferences. If you can't afford to pay to go to a conference, reach out to the directors and say, hey, can I volunteer? Can I be a PA? Because then oftentimes you'll get into the event for free and have to watch a room or help, with registration, and you're able to get. But the more networks and the more people you can put into your database on the front end side, a lot of us rely on social, and that's great. But the most valuable thing I did when I was a new investor, Nathaniel, was literally anybody I met at a meetup group or conference, I got their business card, I put it into a spreadsheet. And then I put that into my CRM and would just
Mm.
start emailing them out once a week with things that are going on. You know what I mean? Just that drip marketing campaign. Hey, here's what's going on this week. Hey, maybe it might just be, hey, happy Memorial Day. You know what I mean? Or Merry Christmas, or hey, I'm going to the local meetup group talk, and they're going to talk about this. If you're local, let's come network. Let's I'll buy you a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that. That's
Yeah.
probably when you're starting brand new and bootstrapping and you don't have a lot of funds. It all comes down to your network. Maybe somebody in your network can help plug that gap that you need something to take care of, and that's really. I mean, we've built a huge database, 78,000 email database, and a huge social media presence. So we've got a big list, and so we can do a little bit more of that. But when you're starting off, take advantage of every opportunity you have to go and network and meet people and
Yeah.
add them to your database is one of the most valuable things you can do.
I love that. The networking with Nathaniel was born essentially out of that. Is your network is your net worth, and
Yes, sir.
go meet a bunch of people. When I joined Sub 2 over 3 years ago, they say go meet 25 people, and I did that, and I just took that at face value. Like, okay, I met 25 people. Check. What's next? But it's not just about that. It's about connecting with them and stay connecting with them, and asking the right questions. But you didn't brush over it. One thing that I love about your morning routine is that it starts at 8, because you're not starting your day till 11, your work day till 11 for the most part, is that I don't need to get up at 4:30. This is something that we talked about on my Fit Fatherhood podcast last night, is that I get up at 4:45 because the kids wake up at 7, and so that's one of my workday starts, because
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
family
So
first.
big disclosure. I don't have kids. Okay, so
Right, fur babies. You have
you know
fur
what I mean.
kids.
And if I was
Yeah.
working a full-time job, you would block out that time frame. You would have to get up a little bit earlier to get things
Right.
done, or a little bit later and get some things
Yeah.
done. So, yeah,
And I don't work.
you
I like after 8:30, I don't work very well. I know that about myself. So there are some people that midnight is when they're getting the best work done. Maybe that's a little excessive, but
well, but no, it is. There are people like that are night owls. That's when the
yeah.
house is quiet too. We've got some folks that do that. I've got a student of mine. He travels abroad in a lot of cases, so he works from like 10 p.m. to midnight in hotels because
Yeah.
everything's done for the day with where he's at. So he has the time to focus on his note business, 5 to 10 hours a week.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing that I love about this is that you're not spending 40 hours a week. You're not. A lot of the heavy lifting is handled by contractors, or you can hire a VA, a virtual assistant, to do a lot of your outreach, your marketing. I think that's one of the biggest things is leveraging AI to these days to get things done. People always ask me, "Oh my God, Scott, you must have this huge team that does your videos and does your podcast." I'm like, not really. I mean, we've got a smaller team now than we did 10 years ago because we've leveraged these things to work smarter and not so harder. I don't want to buy a tape of 700 notes. That's a whole lot of work anymore. I'm happy with that 50.
Yeah. One at a time. I'm good with it.
I don't want to work so hard. I got enough gray hair here.
Yeah, I knew this was happened because the couple conversations that we've had, this is the way it goes. We are at the 50-minute mark.
Yeah.
I do have 2 questions now that I've asked everybody on Networking with Nathaniel for everybody. Do you have any books, recommendations, business, personal development, specifically the notes maybe that you would recommend for listeners?
Well, if you want to dive into the note space, you can reach out to me. I can send you a copy of my book. I've got a pretty easy 75-page ebook that I'm glad to email you. It's an easy read before you kind of go through how we got started and the basics of it. Then we've got a free. You're not going to learn everything about investing in a 3-hour class, but shoot me an email. I'm glad to give you a free class that we teach once a month. It's kind of like our Cliff Notes version of see if it's like for you. But I think one of the most impactful books I've ever read was written back in 1938, originally by Napoleon Hill, but not released until about 15 years ago. And that's Think and Grow Rich, Outwitting the Devil.
Oh yeah.
And the manuscript came out, was at the Napoleon Hill Foundation. I'm actually friends with Sharon Lechter and not Don King. What's his last name? I can't think. But anyway, the guy that still runs the Napoleon Hill Foundation. And they got this manuscript. It wasn't released because it's a conversation Napoleon Hill have literally talking with the devil, interviewing the devil, what makes him serious. And part of they said in the book is that what makes the devil so successful, he causes people to drift. They get that squirrel, these shiny object syndrome. They're going from one thing to another, and they're not being focused. And that was one book that really stood out to me more than anything else. Was about saying being focused, getting rid of the drift. I mean, we all drift from different things. We all have distractions. And a lot of times, I mean, if you look at the most serious, the most successful people, is because they've been the most driven and the most laser focused. And that's one big mistake I see so many investors making, is that they want to be a jack of all trades and you're a master of none. We're going to add another tool to a tool belt. And yeah, you need tools to get things done. But most of the time, all you need is a hammer, screwdrivers, and a pair of pliers. You don't need all these fancy wrenches to get stuff done. So that book has stood out to me. I've probably given away, I don't know, 50, 60 copies of it over the years to people. It's really good. And what's great about Sharon, she didn't really edit that much. She let the manuscript mainly, but she added sections at the end of each chapter, what she thought Napoleon Hill would think of in today's world. So Outwitting the Devil, one of the most valuable books I've ever read, for sure.
Yeah. I have not read it. I've listened to it. I like the audio.
The audio book is actually a little bit better than the actual book. The book can get a little dry, but the audio book side of it, much better to listen.
The back and forth, and the version. I don't know if there's multiple audiobook versions, but the version I listened to was like, oh man, that's the devil talking.
Yeah. That's the last thing you want in your ear, but sometimes it's a good thing.
I agree with that. The way that they frame the drifting, and he talks about the drifting over and over again throughout that book, it really drives the point home, is that you got to, it's not a 3-month, a 6 months, it's staying focused for a very long period of time on this one thing. That's how you become super great at it. Yolanda would like to know the name of your podcast again, Scott. I will make sure that goes into the show notes as well.
It's the Note Closer Show podcast. What's on my hat here for you, Yoli?
Yeah, there you go. So being your 48th birthday, this is something that this question is going to be easy for you to knock out, because we've talked about this before. On your birthday each year, you do a reflection on the past year. You know what? Before I get to the question, I have another question. what are you looking at over the past year on your birthday, at being 40, you're being 48 years young this year? What are the things that you're looking at back and reflecting on as, as a husband, as an investor, entrepreneur?
So I look at a couple of things. I look at the memories. My dad was always big about memories, moments made. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So these days it's pretty easy with like social media doing like the year review and things like that. So I look back at what was my highlights, memories, things we went to, what we enjoy, trips we take, because that's really what you take with. I mean, yes, I look at the number of deals that we've done in the last 12 months, how many people we've had as coaching students, how many deals have they done? Because that's what I really get the most joy out of, is people helping
mm,
people close more deals. But that's the
yeah.
thing, obviously you look at your health. Am I healthier now than I was a year ago? Where are we going with that? And so that's the thing. We've kind of come up with the decision that we're probably going to be moving out of Austin sometime in the next 2 years to get closer to my mom down in
Okay.
South Texas. And so that's one thing we've been looking at. But that's the thing. I give Joyce that every morning that I wake up 6 feet above ground. But then, okay, what memories did we make, and what memories can we make the next 12 months?
Yeah. I-
What deals can we close, and how profitable we were, and what can we do to be more profitable without killing ourselves, in the most part.
mm, we talk about 10xing a lot, and I forget who it was years ago. This is going back at least 5 years, but they said, how can I 10x with ease? And I thought that that was really interesting. It's like, I still want to be able to do the things, eat lunch with my family, dinner with the family. On the memory standpoint, I'm going to go grab something real quick. I don't normally take my headphones off during networking with family.
That's okay. That's fine. Yoli, you mentioned that on here you listened to Outwitting the Devil. Glad it was in the daylight. Yeah, that's
I
true.
thought
You
that this
definitely.
was very cool. What was it?
Well, I was just answering Yoli's question. She said she listened
Oh, yeah.
to the Outwitting the Devil. I'm glad she did it during daylight hours.
And for those of you out there, I don't know if you were able to see, I do wear pants. I
Yes.
just wanted to, yeah. I don't know if people are thinking that, but yes, I am. We started this at the beginning of this year for that exact reason of the making of memories. At the end of each week, we do it on Sunday night, almost every Sunday night. We've done it on a Monday or Tuesday before. We take a sticky note, we write a memory or two from the week. Brittany and I each do our own. And then at the end of the year, we'll have 104.
Nice.
Well, we'll probably have a little bit less than that because traveling or things. But those are our memories, because I have a really bad memory, and so I want to be able to remember them. And it'll be a cool little thing at the end of the year where we get to pick them up. Oh yeah, remember when Harland or whatever did this? Like, or I remember when we went to Disneyland. That was so awesome.
Right.
And for me with the kids, what was your favorite part about Disneyland? Now they're able to go, oh yeah, time exists.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
Right.
you kind of already alluded to it, but when your time is done, Scott, on this earth, and you're wherever you believe you go, what do you want to be remembered for by the people that you've left behind?
I want to be remembered for just being the guy that they could rely on.
Mm,
Of being the go-to when they needed help, they could reach out to me. Um, we're very, very proud of the fact that we've already helped a lot of people financially grow their business, become note investors, make six figures, leave their job, you know, build their life without anyone. But that's the biggest thing I want to be remembered for, that we're always there to help folks.
I love that. Yeah.
Always to have a laugh, sense of humor and stuff like that, but had a good time. But also just to be there and be the person in a world full of flakes. We wanted to be the rock that people can stand on.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate you. I knew that we would have some chuckles, so we would have a good time. I learned a lot from you as well, and I hope that the people out there that were listening live, I know Yolanda did, and in the future as well, we're able to take some pieces. Yolanda, I'm speaking directly to you right now. No, I'm speaking to a lot of different people, but Scott mentioned it, is that it takes focus, and it takes a long period of time of focusing on one thing. Just because a lot of the things that Scott has said on the show seem exciting and he's doing a lot, if you're focused on wholesaling or you're focused on buying co-living properties, do not let this distract you.
Yeah, exactly.
Scott found this niche and it's working very well for him. That's not to say that if something you're not enjoying, you can't go explore this. But Just don't let this be a shiny object, is what I want to say. I appreciate you so much, Scott. Any parting words? Also, would you repeat the best way for people to reach out to you again, please?
Yeah, real easy. Best way to reach me is just go to weclosenuts.com or book a call at talkwithscottcarson.com. That'll get you direct on my booking calendar, book a 30-minute phone call with me. But we're just here to help. I want to say thank you so much. If you're watching the replay, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you leave a good comment for Nathaniel. We love as creators to see that kind of stuff out there and hear from you. So do that for him. And thank you for having me on.
That's coming from somebody that is closing in on 1,000 episodes of his own podcast. So that's experience right there. Just plugging that stuff. I appreciate you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Have a great day.
You too. Scott Carson, amazing. A lot about note investing that I did not even think of. I didn't even think of, creating a note and making it, essentially you're kind of raising the NOI, the net operating income, on a note here, and then you're able to turn around and go, hey, look, I've revalued this note and I'm able to go turn and sell it for a profit. So that's really, really cool. He's doing a lot of things that are very aligned with having a fulfilled life, which is something that I took away from right now, that he's taking care of himself early on. That way he can pour into his people and his business throughout the day and throughout his weeks. So that's something that you should be taking away and adding to your life, is pour into yourself, because when somebody else has a cup that they need poured into, if yours is empty, you don't have anything to pour into them. So as always, if you're needing help out there, not with note investing, because go to Scott for that. But if you're needing help out there in your business, talking to sellers, underwriting deals, whatever it may be, I have open office hours every Thursday at noon Eastern time. You could go to nathanielhovsepian.com to find the link for that. It's in there. I open office hours. Yolanda's been taking advantage of it, as other people have been as well. Like Scott said, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when we go live and when other valuable content drops. And if you made it this far without hitting the like button, come on, hit the like button. I appreciate y'all for being here live and in the future. I will see you next week. Later.